Hey, good day. This is Frisky Biscuit. I'm Dr. G with my cohort,
Lisa.
and we're here to help you along the way. We are an engaging little podcast, and we love that you're here with us. And what are we all about, Lisa?
We are Frisky Biscuit. We're all about you, actually. We love hearing from you. Thank you. Thank you. Let us know more what you want to hear, because today we have some amusing travel facts for you.
That's to say
Kinda
the least.
weird.
That's
but
to say the
fun.
least. Lisa's been working really hard on finding things for us to talk about, but also information that you probably haven't heard of before. In fact, we're going to figure out where in the hell the stop sign came from today and the trouble it had even existing for a long time. So until we get to that, we got a bunch of other stuff to talk about. We want to thank you for being with us. So let's just get started. Let's talk about some interesting stuff. You found some really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of things that are in the news first. Let's talk about Elon Musk. Gary, our bobblehead, Gary really wants to meet Elon. So, hi, Elon. How are you out there? So, congratulations. Elon Musk has a new airport, a new adventure on the east side of Austin. It's about an hour's drive from his 2,500-acre estate in Texas, his headquarters, and about 3 miles from Austin's executive airport. So he can drive his Gulfstream right into the airport so he can have some privacy. So good on you, Elon, using your money correctly for you and for your company. And we love you. We appreciate what you're doing out there in the world to benefit all of us. So that's in the news.
And the truth of the matter is he just didn't want to have to deal with the airports anymore, because that is a miserable existence compared to the way it used to be. So I think he's got the right idea. It only took $256 billion, we all ought to have our own airport.
Well, I heard, too, he's getting a new jet stream that's supposed to come out in 2023, upgrading from his 2015.
A Gulfstream, not jet stream.
Oh, okay. He goes along the jet stream. Sounds a little the same. Sometimes I get my, different consonants off a little bit.
Oh, we know what you meant.
Speaking of travel, there's also some travel news that even Megyn Kelly had on her podcast about all the luggage that's being lost over in Europe. This year people are going more and more overseas because, one, the dollar to the euro is about par now, or it is par, may even be under par as we speak today. So it's a good deal. I remember when I went to Europe, it was always 1 to 1.33. Not anymore. It's 1 to 1. So why not go? However, make sure you keep track of your luggage, or you may want to just bring a carry-on. They have lost so much luggage that Delta flew an entire flight back to the United States, back to New York, with only luggage on it. Lost luggage, that is.
You're talking about a whole airplane just full of lost luggage?
Delta Airlines, a whole airline full of luggage. And they say, Iceland Air is actually flying with baggage handlers on the flight itself, because there's so many people traveling over in Europe, and KLM, they stopped check bags. So you can only take a carry-on in flying between Europe, between the cities. So it's a big problem.
That's KLM that decided that the baggage claim thing beat them.
We're not going to deal with it anymore.
They gave up.
In fact, there's a lot of luggage, they said, being stolen too. Not stolen, thrown away. So they have some photos over in Dublin airport that some of the bags were opened and pilfered through and then thrown away. However, there's always another side to the story. So the baggage handlers are saying, this luggage has been here for so long, it's starting to rot, and we had to get rid of it. So there's some real problems out there in the travel world. So be careful as you're traveling out there. Make sure you keep your medications with you if you have some.
Have you lost luggage on traveling a lot? You've done a lot of traveling. So.
I've done a lot of traveling. I've only lost a bag once, and I received it the next day. However, I was a tour guide for Globe's Gateway for many years, and we did Not a lot, but there were a few people, and it's problematic on a tour. If you're taking off on a cruise, or if you're on a train or even a bus tour, your luggage has had, they're going to say you start in Vancouver, but you're going up to Banff. Your luggage has to catch up with you.
Right.
So it can be challenging. It can be more than a day.
Are you one of these people that carry a lot of luggage?
I used to. I don't anymore. I'm a carry-on person now. One thing that's helped is clothing's gotten a lot thinner and warmer. So it's worked out where you don't have to carry as much.
When did you learn how not to carry so much luggage? After you'd been a taxi cab driver?
After I sat on my luggage because I couldn't get it closed. It was like something has to give. It's either this luggage is going to give.
Those of you who don't know, she also used to drive a cab.
I did in Aspen.
She was a celebrity cab driver.
It was really fun. It's not as easy as it seems. If you've
now wait a minute. You told me that since you're a girl that they just would get their own luggage out of the trunk and.
That's true. That's true. I did have an advantage there, and they tipped really well. It's just, it's more of like Battleship Galactica. Is it best to be at the airport when there's 10 other drivers there?
Battlestar Galactica?
Yes. Or is it best to be in town where there's nobody, yet there may not be people? So it's all about adjusting. It was really fun. It's long, though. I have a great heart for taxi drivers now. 15-hour days, 12-hour days. It's long. Start at 5 in the morning, end at 5 at night. Although where I was, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't like...
I had to interject that just for fun because you've done so many cool things, and most of them done really well. They got to know that you're a cab driver.
Well, now the cat's out of the bag. Speaking of driving, we've got some interesting driving facts around the world. Did you know it's criminal offense in Russia to drive with a dirty car? I wish they had that here. I'm starting to see dirty cars, and in Twin
that is my kind of place.
See dirty cars.
That's my kind of place. I love clean cars, so Russia's a place.
Yes, and also, did you know in LA there's actually more cars than people? There's 3.9 million people in LA, and there's 6.4 million cars. I mean, no wonder they're all bumper to bumper. No wonder there's traffic problems. There's just so many cars.
What is wrong with that picture?
Probably not going to get a speeding ticket there.
Oh, man.
Although the first speeding ticket was back in 1896. It was in Kent. And the guy was pulled over
Kent
because...
where?
Kent, England.
Kent, England.
He was going 4 times the legal limit. The legal limit was 2 miles an hour, and he was going 8 miles an hour.
That reminds me of the lawnmower races we used to go to.
Oh, my gosh.
Have you ever seen lawnmower races? They actually have them here in Idaho, and that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But these things, they don't putt-putt. These things do 40 and 50 and 60 miles an hour.
How do they make those go so fast?
Oh, they run nitroglycerin through them, man. They run nitro fuel, and they crash and burn. We saw a guy break his leg, fly over the top of one of them, and another girl runs into the wall, and oh my God.
It looked like fun, but it was fast.
It's usually at a rodeo or a fairgrounds, but man, it was funny. Yeah, I don't know. I got off the subject, but lawnmower races. If you ever had a chance, go see them. It sounds silly and stupid, but it is great.
Well, it's fair time now. It's summer, so they may be in your area. Okay, back to cars. There's 1.2 billion cars on this planet, and they say there's going to be 2 billion by 2035. That's a freaking lot of vehicles. And, you know, the average driver in Britain spends 99 days of their life in traffic. I mean, if you've been to London, that kind of makes sense.
Well, you know, I was just thinking, as you're going through this stuff, we definitely are giving you engaging information that is for people who drive on the road, because these kind of things are facts most people don't even know about. And you dig this stuff up. I do not know where you get it, but it's fascinating. It's a lot of fun to listen to. And we trust you're enjoying it, and if you are, comment. Let's hear. Maybe you got some interesting facts we can talk about too. So,
you know, the best place to comment is on our YouTube channel. We have a channel called Frisky Biscuit Podcast on YouTube. and is really gaining subscribers lately. So thank you so much for liking and subscribing to our channel. You can also, we have a website. It's frisky-biscuit.com, and it has our podcast, some of the podcast channels. We're on 18 different ones, but the main ones like Spotify and Apple and Google, they have a little link at the bottom of the website. Also on the website has the YouTube link where you can go directly to it. It has some really funny pictures. Our email address is on our website, FriskyBiscuitPodcast@gmail. So if you want to hear something specific, let us know either on the YouTube channel or email us directly. The other thing, we have these really cool Road Warrior stickers that we give out to people that we meet on the road or that do interviews with us. So if you want one, let us know. We'll send it out to you. We're actually going to hit the road soon. We'll be leaving tomorrow, and we're going to Wyoming. We're going to go cruise
If we
around.
can get our rig ready.
Yeah.
We have had a lot of time to get ready. Man, we're ready to get the hell out of town, and we got to go get Roxy and get her over here and fill her up. And
why don't you tell them why we named her Roxy?
Well,
and it's not sexual.
No, it's not. But these big motorhomes, and ours isn't a big one. It's a Sprinter van that's
25 feet.
25 feet long, but it's wide. It's got an expanded body on it. And man, if you don't hit the street when you're at the corner of a street, and if you don't hit it just right with your back tires, that thing just rocks back and forth just because the suspension gets a little bit of torque on it. So Roxy, we were driving along, and it seemed like learning how to drive it was a challenge, and it seems like I could not hit the street right. So every time we just shake all over the place, and so we decided to call her Roxy.
It's fitting.
Stupid idea, but that's our story.
It's fitting. Well, when I drive Roxy, you definitely have to have shoes. If you're in Spain, it's illegal to wear certain types of shoes. We don't have that in the States, but in Spain, if you're wearing flip-flops, backless shoes, high heels, or you're barefoot, you can be fined up to €200 for wearing the wrong shoes.
Boy, that'd be a
Spain.
problem for you, just finding the right shoe. You got a few choices. Yes.
I do take my shoes off once in a while driving. It is kind of nice just to touch the floor.
You not only
touch
take your
pedal.
shoes off, you have both your feet underneath of you in the seat. There's nothing touching the floor. You got the cruise control on. If you ever had to hit the brakes, it's terrifying.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, the man that invented cruise control, he was blind. Did you know that? When I read that, I was like, oh. It was back in 1948.
That makes total sense.
Well, his attorney used to drive him around, and he got tired of the way his attorney drive. He said he was a terrible driver. So he invented a device, he patented it for cruise control, but he was blind. He had never driven a car. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I love cruise control. Just to push a button and just
I used
let
to
it
know
drive.
the guy that invented the wipers, the intermittent wipers. There was a whole movie about that. I can't remember the name of it, though. It was actually pretty interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Weren't they manual at one time?
Well, the wiper, yeah. But the big thing is with the windshield wipers, everybody driving cars now, they're so beautiful and so automatic, and we just push a button, the windows go up. Now, you used to have to crank windows, believe it or not, and these wipers, it was a big deal because it would rain, and then they'd be going too fast, and then it would be too slow. And he invented a little gizmo that you put in the car, and it would turn them on and then turn them off. And people would watch his car. How do you get your wipers to go on and off like that? And he ended up having a big patent and a big battle with Ford and a couple of the other car companies. But there's a movie about it, and I cannot remember that. I think it's called Intermittent because it's the invention of the intermittent windshield wiper. Pretty interesting stuff. So, see, I know stuff.
Thank goodness we live in today's world.
I know stuff. The cruise control story was good, but that was just as good.
Well, in Costa Rica, I've never been to Costa Rica. Have you?
Never have.
They say it's okay to drink and drive as long as you're not drunk.
I've barely been across the street.
So in Costa Rica, have you been to Costa Rica yourself? So if you have, let us know. Is that the truth? I mean, this is stuff I'm finding on the internet, but that sounds kind of odd, yet I suppose, it's a country that every country makes its own rules, right?
Yeah, allegedly.
So here's a few other little tidbits. The average American spends nearly 2 weeks of their life sitting at red lights.
I would believe that.
I believe that too.
I would believe that. Sure, that's all it is?
Yes. 2 weeks.
Seems like more than that.
I know.
Yeah.
2 long weeks. Every car has an average of 30,000 parts on a car. So you're guaranteed something's going to break in your car over time. And this is a really good one. Smart cars. Everybody knows smart cars. Those little tiny cars.
They are so stupid looking.
Well, the Guinness Book of World Records, the most people that's ever fit in a smart car was 19. I mean,
why in the hell would you even attempt that?
I don't. Well, I guess just for fun.
Just to get in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Where were they? Like, did you just have 1 foot? Did they actually drive with the car itself?
How many did you say?
19.
19 people in a smart car.
Maybe they were kids. Maybe they were little kids.
Even that, I just remember that used to be the thing of the Volkswagens. It's how many people can get in a Volkswagen, but they're so much bigger than a smart car.
I know.
You know.
That's hard to believe. I'd like to see that. And then last, 75% of all of Rolls-Royce are still on the road.
My kind of car.
Yeah.
That says
Gary
a lot about
used
the
to
quality.
own a Rolls-Royce.
Yes, I had one. Believe it or not.
What was that like? What was it like driving it?
Oh, I love that car. I love that car. You know, it was embarrassing to drive it, but I'm a car nut, and I had to have one, so I got one once and got my fill of it. But they're beautiful cars. I tell you what, they're talk about a step above everything we drive now because they're all handmade, and they still are. And the quality and the craftsmanship, that's what I'm into. The wood and all the trimming and stuff that's just beautifully fit. The fit and finish.
And did people stop you and say, can I look in your car?
Yeah.
Can I be part of your car?
The most fun I had with that Rolls Royce was driving it through a drive-through restaurant at McDonald's. People would stop the entire place, and the kids coming to the drive-in window couldn't believe it, and they thought it was funny. But it would just see people's reactions because it's just a car, you know, just a hunk of metal. But people, they marketed their daylights out of it, so it's just kind of legendary. But you do see them; they do get your attention. The new ones, not so much, but the old ones, with the big square grill.
Yes,
they're so pretty.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're so beautiful. So 75% of them are still out on the road.
It's quite a bit different than the Chevy Suburban we drive now,
I love our
which is about the same size as a Rolls Royce.
That's right. All right, so let's go into the highways. We've talked a little bit about cars. So on the interstate highways, you know, they have all these highway signs. Like, where did those come from? So it was in the mid-1950s that they did this experiment to figure out what color the signs ought to be. So they put up green, blue, and black. And they put them in 2 different cities where all the drivers would go through and they would comment on which ones work the best. So they found that the green signs, 58% said they could see those the best. Then the blue signs, 27%, and then the black signs. Well, then they decided that, okay, what kind of writing ought to go on the signs? And they realized that the population is getting older.
Total government work.
Right? Yeah. I mean, they've got to have something to do with
Signed
their
by
money.
committee.
So they decided that highway Gothic was the best type of writing to put on a sign. And you know how government works, right? So this started in the 1980s, and they wanted a new face for all the signs. And it would increase the visibility, they found out, if they changed the type of font on the signs. So it was finally approved, right? It started in 1980. It was finally approved in 2004 by the Highway Administration. And they were going to change all these signs out. And so in 2009, they endorsed it. They called it the Clear View. And they were going to change all our signs on the road to this kind of Gothic script. Well, earlier this year, the government just abandoned all of it. They decided not to endorse it. They said
So
it was
they did
still
all
in
this
its
work.
testing phase.
All this work, spending our tax money, and then they just decide, oh, well, we're just not going to do that anymore.
I know, and it seems like we have so many roads and so many road signs. Why don't you just leave them alone? Like, why do all these studies? And so they just left it. It's gone. The other thing I found out is, how do they put all the markings on the road? So they decided, this is pretty cool. Back in 1917, the cars were all driving okay. And the rule of thumb with the cars, this was the rule, that you just hug the right side of the road. And it did work, if you're driving a car, and back in 1917, your cars were a little bit smaller, and you did everything you could to hug the side of the road. Wow.
They had a name for that back then.
What was it called?
It's called always right.
Really?
Yeah, always right. So you pass a car, then you always go right. You always stay on the right side. And I think it's actually a pretty good idea. I wish more people would do that now out on the freeway. You pass a car and you stay in the right lane. And then people can just easily get around you without having to wait. That's where that came from.
Well, it worked really well until you came to a curve. And then
no lines.
When cars were going too fast, they would just go over the curve, and that's where all the accidents would happen. So they decided, okay, we're going to do something about this. We're going to paint a line in the middle of the road. And so they decided the modern center line came in 1917 with a guy named Edward Hines. And he decided on it because he saw a delivery wagon on a paved road, and he spilled a bunch of milk going down the road. And so it put a line in the middle of the road. And that's how it all came about. So in 1935, the highway department and the government, we're all kind of picking on the government today. They decided to paint
our favorite subject.
Lines on the middle of the road, and they had to decide, are they going to be yellow, white, or black? And they said, well, it kind of depends on which road, what the color of the road is, of what color the lines will be. So in 1955, 49% of the states decided, okay, we're going to paint these lines and adopt the color white. Well, Oregon said, no way, we want yellow. We're taking yellow. You guys, the 49 states, you can have white, we're doing yellow. Well, the government said, well, you know what? We're going to hold $300 million from you in highway funds because you're not painting it the color we want it to be. So finally, Oregon said, okay, we'll do it your way. We'll take up and paint it white instead of yellow. Well, in 1971, the government mandated all the lines in the middle to be yellow. So Oregon's out there smugly going, yeah, we got our way. So there isn't really a rule now. I mean, they finally adopted back in the 70s that official markings. But if you go state to state and you look at it, not all the middle lines are white or yellow.
But I tell you, the most valuable line is the one that's on the side of the road.
Well, and that used to be illegal. It wasn't until the 50s that the edge markings came into play. They used to be prohibited.
A big one. Especially here where we live, where you get fog. And even down in California in places where it's foggy all the time, man, you can't see the side of the road. So that line makes a big difference.
Well, and when I lived in Colorado, the roads, they only pave the roads for 2 cars, and then there's a lot of ditches. So in the wintertime, when the snows come, it fills up the ditches. So you can't see any of the lines. So you better kind of know telepathically.
There's no shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in a few of those ditches. But the AAA guy, the last time he pulled me out, he brought me a beer. He was like, you require this, Lisa.
Too much information.
It was difficult.
So he gives you a beer, and then he sends you on your way in your car. Yeah.
Isn't that ironic? That was years ago. I doubt they'll do that again today.
No kidding. Oh, man.
All right, so roads. Let's talk about. Okay, stop signs. That's the next one. Okay, how did the stop signs come about? Originally, all the signs, this was back when people didn't have a lot of cars, back in the 1950s, 1920s, back when they first decided all this stuff, all the signs were diamonds.
This is back when a car wasn't part of our family.
No, not that many people
had
had
a spot
cars,
at the dinner table.
But they had problems because there wasn't any road signs, and the road signs that they put together, they were all the same color, they were all yellow, and they were all diamonds. So you really didn't know what it said until you got right up to the road signs.
Kind of hard to differentiate each one of them if they all look the same.
I know. And they had
sign.
a name. They were called boulevard signs. A boulevard sign. When you came to a boulevard, you'd see a sign and you had to do what the sign said, but you didn't know.
Back to government work.
Yeah, you didn't know what the sign was until you got right up to it. So there was a Detroit police officer, and the police officers were always the one that had to deal with it and out on the roads. So what he did is he cut the corners off of the diamonds and made what we have today as the stop sign. And the stop signs were originally yellow, and then they painted them red. The only challenge was the red faded, so it would become this kind of pinkish, weird color, and you couldn't see the stop signs so well. So it wasn't until 1954 when they found paint that was fade resistant that you actually have the red stop sign. So if you go back in pictures, the stop signs, some of them will be pink because they used to fade.
I remember that back in the day, dating myself, back in the 50s, where you would drive and you'd see these pink faded signs and you couldn't see the letters because they were white. And those were stop signs, but the paint on them wouldn't hold. Then all of a sudden they just started just red, and they'd look great and they were cool looking and they worked. And they also, then they reflectorized them. That was another thing later on.
Right. And before they had stop signs, it was only police officers that were in the middle of the road. And can you imagine?
They did a great job, wouldn't it?
You've got cars and trucks and buggies and trolleys and all these things coming at you, and you're only one guy in the middle of the road. So there was a police officer. These police officers are brilliant, especially today's times and back in olden times. And I'm saying olden times back in the 20s and 30s. And, they were the ones that were dealing with all this traffic. So one guy in Salt Lake City, I love this guy. His name was Lester Wire. In 1912, he was like, I'm not going to get killed out here with all these buggies and these horses and these cars. And remember, cars, there weren't that many, so people really didn't know how to drive them that well, right? I mean, and they were just not as...
a lot of people still don't know how to drive them.
That's true. They weren't as easy to drive as they are now.
Man, I tell you what, you see some of the people out on the road right now, like, good Lord, you actually have a driver's license? And a lot of them don't.
That's true.
A lot of them probably don't.
That's true.
They drive cars out here in the country like they fly planes in Alaska. Who needs a license?
Well, and who needs a stop sign?
I'm just flying down to the road.
Fly right through. Well, this guy got tired of it, Lester Wire. He was like, you know what? I'm not going to get killed out here. So he took a bird cage and he cut out 6 holes and put red on one side.
A bird cage or a bird house?
A bird house, rather. Yeah, my words aren't coming out quite right today, but you know what I mean, right? So one side was green with these 6 holes, and one side was red. And so he would just switch them. Well, there was a problem with that, too, because if you've got a green and it's like go, and these are old cars, right, in the 1920s, and then all of a sudden it switches to red, you've got to stop. So what he'd do is he'd keep the green up and then put the red in. And it was confusing everybody, but it worked. So he wouldn't have to stand in the middle of the road. And he did this in Salt Lake City in 6 different intersections. And that's actually how we got the traffic light. So the stop sign was a policeman cutting off the
Officer Wire
diamond, and Officer Wire became the traffic light. Well, there was no yellow lights, right? It was just red and yellow. Well, another officer in Detroit in 1917, so that's 5 years later, came up with the yellow light because you only had green and red. And even today it's really tough when you see the yellow. It's like, okay, I got to slow down. So at least there's some caution there. But it was a police officer that came up because, again, they were the ones standing in the middle of the intersection.
Right.
And they're like, hey, we got to get better here.
Dodging horses and buggies.
Well, and
then
cars,
a car. Yeah.
and I mean, there was probably horses going everywhere, and I mean, and the roads weren't as good as the roads we have now. So you had a lot of roads that weren't paved.
I've seen some pretty good roads out here right now that could use some pavement.
Well, pavement, the potholes.
Potholes.
Well, the word pot actually is a Middle English word that means pit. So, and then there's hole, right? So you've got pit, hole. So it's really hole. And that word was before we even had cars.
Hole.
That's what it's called. That's what a pothole is. It's a hole.
It's a hole in the hole.
You know, the water gets under the pavement and then it freezes and it expands and you have these holes that come up. And so it's really pothole is hole, pit hole.
I bet you didn't know you're going to get roadside, science.
This is just engaging information to just use with your friends out there. And next week we are going to have an interview so you don't have to hear all this from us. We have some really good interviews coming up.
I don't know. I like this. I think this is interesting stuff. And, as you drive down the road, you're listening to stuff, and these are kind of fun facts.
And you hit a pothole and you can go, hole.
I knew about potholes. They're holes.
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 Well, speaking of holes in the ground, subways. Let's go to New York. Let's switch over to subways. The subway was illegal originally. Back in New York City, there was a guy named Alfred Beach, and he was the editor of a magazine called Scientific American. And he really wanted to put a subway because they had traffic back then, too, that was problematic. And so this was back in the 1870s. This was even before we're talking about all the road signs and stuff. They had problems with their traffic. And so he's like, okay, let's put this underground train system. And what we're going to do, it's like a subterranean pneumatic tube system. And we'll use these big fans and we'll push this tube underground. And then we'll have like this train car.
What possibly could go wrong?
And, well, it was going to work. However, the prominent citizens that had the power, the political clout, they were really against it. They did not want this to happen because they had fears that it would have pollution consequences. Pollution, we have problems with that today. Back in the 1870s, the politicians were, this could be a problem. Okay, so this guy, Alfred said, well, okay. So what he did is he sold the New York legislature on this whole system underground in New York that is there today as a small parcel carrying pneumatic tubes. But he made it big enough for people. So he got the legislature to approve it. He got funding for it back in the 1870s. They built the system under New York. And then when he unveiled it, the public were so impressed, they paid to travel as an amusement ride. So the legislature allowed it to happen because they made their money back. It's all about money, right? But that's those of you that live in New York and those of you that have gone to New York, and if you're riding on a subway today and you're listening to the Frisky Biscuit podcast, that's how it all started.
It was a carnival ride.
Yeah, it was a carnival ride. It probably still is a carnival ride
now it's
today.
a thrill ride.
Yeah, today you just bring your gun with you, right? No, I'm sorry, but
pretty much. Pretty much. Put it this way, it's an option that is a good one to have.
Yes. Hey, I have a joke. You want to split it up? We'll do a little joke.
Oh, no. She's got a joke, everyone. Here we go.
I got a couple jokes. This one's pretty funny. A state trooper pulled over this truck driver because the truck driver, he had gassed up or petroled up or dieseled up his truck at the gas station, and he took off. And about a mile down the road, the policeman pulled him over. So the trucker pulled over and slowed down, and the state trooper came over, went to the truck door and said, "Sir, do you realize that you left your wife back at the truck stop?" And the trucker replied, "Thank God, I thought I'd gone deaf." I know, it's kind of sassy.
I can relate to that once in a while.
You gonna leave me behind?
Be a lonely ride without you.
Okay, that didn't go over that well. I'm gonna have to get better.
I heard no audiences clapping. I heard nobody laughing. So.
Okay, I'm gonna attempt one more.
Give it another shot.
Okay, there was this husband and wife driving in their motorhome. Well, they really argued except for this day when they approached a town called Kirkcudbright, or it could be cud curd bright. Well, they started arguing back and forth of how it was named. And the husband was, livid, saying, no, you pronounce it this way. I know how to do it. This was an English couple, because this is a town over in England. And the wife was like, no, I know. I've been through this town many times, and this is how you pronounce it. And they just started arguing back and forth. So then finally they said, okay, let's go stop for lunch. And so they got out of the car, and they just, you could feel the energy. It was just fuming in the car. And so they got out, and they went to lunch. And finally the husband was like, you know what? I'm going to find out how you really say it. So he asked the guy behind the counter, he goes, could you please settle an argument between me and my wife? How do you pronounce where we're in? And the guy behind the counter looked at him, and he goes, Burger King. Hey, you like it? Oh, good. I'm getting better, huh?
That was good.
All right. I'll work on some more for you guys.
Oh, man.
If you like my jokes, let me know. I love you when you email us and talk to us, and get on YouTube, because I haven't really seen that many. Yay! Thank you.
We never used these toys before.
I appreciate it, and Gary does too.
Yeah. Oh man, I tell you what, I do not know where you get some of these things. Where you find this stuff?
Google.
Google's my friend. You Google it. How did I not figure that out?
It's really interesting on this podcast. From week to week, I really, unless we have an interview, do not know what to. I'm like, I'm out of information. What am I going to find out there? And there's newsletters, there's up-to-date motorhome stuff. However, I really attempt to find things that other people aren't. It's already out in the news, and I don't know, for some reason it just comes up, and I have this idea, and I'm like, okay, how does the stop sign come about? That wasn't true. I just stumbled upon it, and I just stumble upon these things, and they're interesting, and it makes me laugh, and I figure if it makes me laugh, it makes you guys laugh.
Well, people have to understand that you are a avid researcher. You're a grant writer, so you do a lot of research, and you know how to do it fast and efficiently. So you find stuff really well. Now me, man, if I can't speak it into my phone and Google can't find it, I am helpless. But boy,
Thank God for you with the electronics, though. He's the master electronics. He loves machines.
I don't know. I had a lot of wrong buttons.
We had to show you this little room what we're in. It is just amazing, our sound studio, of what you've done here.
Well, you'd have to put your underwear away and things like that, and get the clothes.
Tell all my
get the clothes off the chair where we don't have a drying rack, and
No, he's making this up.
No, I'm not.
So that's what I have today. Shall we change
that's
the
what we have.
And go on?
Well, let's talk about comments and people commenting, and let's get people to comment and give us a shout. You said YouTube is the best way to do that.
YouTube or our website, frisky-biscuit.com. The only thing on the website, you're emailing me directly. So at least on YouTube, it goes out to everybody. So if it's something that you want us to see, and it actually helps the algorithm. So commenting on YouTube is a good thing for us. However, you can do it on our website, frisky-biscuit.com, and you can buy us a cup of coffee while you're there too.
You can. One of the things I think we ought to talk about very quickly, a lot of people doing what I do also, my day job, is I help people get from point A to point B. And
he's a hypnotist.
Yeah, I'm a hypnotist, and I do a lot of counseling and therapeutics. But I have a lot of people really, really worried right now about what in the hell are we going to do. And to prevent from getting too political, I think it would be good, because you and I have had a couple of conversations regarding this, and some of the things that you have a really good attitude about what to do with your head right now. Even though I'm the psychologist, I like your spin on it. And right now, all of us are in this together. There's a lot going on, and we're not going to blame the president or a country, because they're people too, and they're in this with us. And
well, because I do a lot of research, a lot of these problems were even way worse back in the 1800s, back in the 1600s. So, you can't just erase history. If you go back in history and see that there was really problematic times back in history as well. So living on this earth, it's great, and it can really suck at times too.
And it's problematic.
Right.
And
so what I've found that works the best is not to have blinders on, but just to stay in my lane and stay happy. What can I do today to make myself happy and to exude happiness to everybody else around me and continue on a path? And then when the problems come up, I adjust with the problems. Because what I find is in the media, in the news, they're constantly throwing problems at us and causing fear. Fear is our enemy. If you stay out of fear and stay in some type of peace and satisfaction, we're going to have a better life. And just adjust when those problems come up instead of hearing all the problems all the time and anticipating the problems. Because remember, what you imagine is what you create. You're creating that. So if you're constantly thinking of problems, you're constantly keep creating the problems. So just create an enjoyment of the day, because tomorrow hasn't come yet. So that's been the way I've been getting through it. And I'm not always the greatest at it. However, when I do, I'm so much happier. My day's happier. And then when I look back, I can say, oh, I had some really great days. And when the problems came up, I could pivot because I was in a good attitude rather than being, if you've got enough stress and you've got enough fear, it's going to take you down. It's going to take your immune system down and problems like that. So that's how I've been doing it.
One of the big things people are having trouble with right now is money. And, the gas prices, they're coming down a little bit right now. And it's funny, they go up to some places, I guess, in California were $9, almost $10 a gallon. And even here in Idaho, we were hitting $6. And so what happens is with people, they're making so much money, and this goes to gasoline and food, they run out. And sometimes there's more month than money. And what people have to realize is all these adjustable factors that you bring into your life, money really is just an adjustable factor as well. You may have a limited amount of it, but the way you choose to use it is your choice. And when we come into these things where it's just all abnormally crazy, how much money we have to spend for gasoline or food, we have to make new choices. And the whole key that I work with telling people is to be flexible. Understand, we call it pivoting. We call, making instant changes rather than changing your mind, just pivot a little bit. And sometimes just a 4-degree shift in the way you think about things, and also the way you look at things, and also the way you spend your money. Just 4-degree difference, or 4% difference, you can say, is going to make a big difference at the end. If you take a wheel and cut it up like a pie chart, if you make a little tiny move down here at the very base of it, when you get out to the radius, it's going to be a big change. And so learning to pivot that way and not be locked into your choices, and that's the way it used to be, and this is the way I've always done it, those things are changing now, and that's not a bad thing. If we can be the change rather than let it change us, that's going to make a big difference, and it's all attitudinal. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So, we're not experts at this, and even though I've been doing that kind of work, working with people and counseling and changing behaviors for almost 40 years.
We're talking about it, though. Yeah. It's been like the big elephant in the room.
It is.
Because we all feel it, and we're all having to deal with it. And it's like, how do you deal with it really effectively and efficiently? And maybe it's just cutting back. Everybody deals with it differently. However, I think it's the underlying attitude. I think you're right. It's just keep positive and know that we've all gone through this ages and ages and ages, and it's just part of life. So
one of the things also, and not to get political, because I can do that real easy, but we have to realize a lot of the youngsters out there right now, we got a couple of generations of people that weren't taught history properly, and they just don't know how this country was founded, the struggles it had. And when we were working with the Daughters of the American Revolution, when we did the video on that, boy, it re-wakes you up like, oh my God, people have made some huge sacrifices just to give us freedom. And a lot of people don't even know what freedom is. And freedom is when you can choose what you want to do, when you want to do it without encumberment. And right now we're borderline losing a lot of that. And it's going to be up to each one of us to stand our ground, be a little bit stubborn, and not put up with a lot of the nonsense that you know is nonsense. And it's coming at us from all directions, and the water's being tested. So give yourself permission to let you be okay, and understand when you think something's wrong, it probably is, because you have a moral compass inside that helps direct you.
Believe in that. Believe in you. Believe in yourself. I don't know how we got onto this.
I chose to put us on it, but I think we are much deeper than what we look.
Yes.
Anyway.
So you can email us.
But I wanted to address this because it is like the elephant in the room, and a lot of people just don't understand what's going on and what to do about it. And what you're going to do about it is to live through it. You're going to enjoy it, and you're going to find the joy in your life, which for us is motorhoming and camping and getting out there.
And driving, being out on the road.
Just getting away. And
music. Listen to some good music. There is amazing music out there that's uplifting, that's fun, that's good road music while you're driving. For me, that does it. It helps.
Well, you're a music girl, and that's good. We're going to talk about music here pretty soon as I figure the licensing out on it so we can play some of it for you. We're working on that right now. We're still growing. We're brand new, and we love you. Thanks for chiming in. And on the subject that we just finished, just take a breath and understand it's all going to work out, and you're going to be okay. Just learn from it and find places to find joy in it. Go camping, get out there, look at some of the parks, look at your local park, your city park. Get out there, take your dog for a walk, pet your cat, and really be thankful and grateful for being here today, because these are amazing times we're in. We're going to see some amazing developments come up, and through all of this, things are probably going to get better. So, trust.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Until next time, this is Dr. G and
Lisa
saying bye-bye. We love you. We'll see you next week.